Hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Van Hemert from Beltline to Broadway, and I am here with Carrie Knowles, who is a prolific writer and former Piedmont laureate here in our area, and Eric Woodall, who is the producing artistic director of North Carolina Theater. But for the purpose of this podcast, I am going to call you Carrie's co-conspirator.
I like that.
And we'll get into that in a little bit. And of course, if any of you have any questions or comments as we're going through, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will get to them. But I'm very excited to see both of you. I started the book. I haven't finished the book, but the book, A Musical Affair, came out on the 15th, just a couple of days ago. So congratulations on the launch, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is it like birthing a baby? Like it goes out in the world and
the pain lasts a lot longer, much, much longer after the initial thing. I'll be at Quail Ridge on Sunday at 2 o'clock with the actual official launch. So
the book, but people can get it now.
Sure.
They don't want to wait till Sunday on Amazon, on Kindle, right? They can get the
Amazon, on Kindle. You can get it through Quail Ridge Books. I think that now during the pandemic, what they've done is you can call and order a book from them and they will send it to you without any charge. So it's a little bit better than Amazon. In fact, it's a lot better than Amazon because it's not Amazon. And you can also get it from my publisher, Owl Canyon Press. Yeah. And if you go to my website, you'll find that. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to get it. It is gettable,
It is gettable. And what number book is this for you, Carrie? I feel like every time I turn around, you have a book coming out.
I think this is number 8. I think this is 8. I was trying to figure that out the other day. Somebody asked me.
And it is so fantastic. And one of the reasons that I wanted to work with Carrie and sort of brainstorm this fun collaboration that we're gonna talk about in a little bit was because I just fell in love with the book. This was right on the heels of The Inevitable Past, which just was fantastic, and I gave it to everybody. It's such an amazing book. And then Carrie said, I want you to read this one, which is so different in tone and is just timed perfectly with the summer because it is such an amazing summer read. But we talked about it. It just hooked me from the beginning because I said, Carrie, it reads like a movie. It just feels like I can see these characters as I'm reading and it feels like they're talking to me. And she just beamed because she had already thought that.
Wish that, wanted it with all my heart,
But then we started talking about some fun ideas about that. But it's such a good book. So much fun.
It really is an easy read, a fun read, kind of a juicy read, which I like. To your point, Eric, kind of being this beach summer book that you can just devour a little bit. But Carrie, I want to ask you, I feel like the book might be a little bit of art imitating life, at least in its premise. You dedicate the book to your son, who in the dedication, it says he asked you to build a music festival. You also, for people who don't know, were the founder of the Boylan Art Festival, which I did the Boylan Heights Arts Festival one year. I've never been so cold in my entire life. I think I spent more time in the house than on the porch because it was really cold for a Floridian. But tell me about your experience with your son producing a music festival.
Well, my son at that time was working. He was played with a group called the Brussels Chamber Orchestra in Belgium. And he called me and he said, I've got this great idea. And he's the kind of person who has these big dreams, big ideas. And he said, Mom, what would you think about organizing a music festival for us and bringing this orchestra to Raleigh? And I said, oh, sure. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. That would be good. And so, as you said before, I'd done other things with the arts, organizing, but this was a big endeavor. I mean, I had no idea about what it meant to get visas, to get, artists, musicians, and Eric can talk about that also, getting actors from other countries to come to this country. I mean, you have to jump through so many hoops to prove that this needs to happen. And then, of course, there was the little issue of the money. And it was, I did it for 5 years, and we started with 2 concerts, and then it became a week, and then it became 2 weeks with a week of one-on-one educational possibility for high school, high school juniors and seniors to sit side by side with a professional for a full week of rehearsals from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, and to perform with them. And it's quite wonderful. A number of those young people who did this program with us have gone on to be professional musicians. And so that's been quite satisfying. But I was in over my head a lot. And it took me, very quickly, I realized it took a full year to pull off a 1 week or 2 week festival. And so for 5 years, that's what I did. A lot of people have asked, and I'm sure you're curious, so what was the point? What was the spark that made me say, okay, I need to write about this? And I felt like I had learned a lot about what happens backstage, and Eric and I have talked a lot about that. How do you make these things move forward? And one day somebody called me, and you have to understand, I mean, I was in it all by myself. I didn't have a staff. I didn't have the money to pay a staff. So I was trying to do everything. And somebody called me and said, so tell me about your donor list. And I said, well, we have some donors. And they said, well, what are your categories? And at that point, I had no categories. I had no idea. I didn't have like the gold circle or the bronze circle or the conductor circle. And so I kind of on the fly said, oh, well, it's this and it's this and it's this. And she said, how much would it cost me to get in the highest group? And I went, well, how about this figure? And she said, okay. And she wrote me a check for $1 more than that, so she would make it into the next group. That, for me, was the most startling moment, because I realized that people who love the arts, if they can, they'll write that $25 check, and that is a big deal for them. And the $50 check is a big deal. But when you get into the $1,000 checks, you're working with a whole different kind of situation and expectation. And that's where the little seed for this book came from, was sometimes the money is more important than the music. And so that's the balancing act. And I'd like to say that I had my act a little bit more together than Celeste in the book, but I did not get sent to Pietrasanta on a whim. And but I did have an intern who was fabulous. Her name was Rachel McKay, and she just saved my life. And she stayed with me for several years, and we just kept doing this thing together. And she just knew everything I didn't know how to do, and taught me a lot. And the two of us just stumbled through it and met a lot of interesting characters. And the book is fictional. I will say that it is fictional, but based on a lot of insights into what goes on to make things happen. And of course, you think that the hardest thing is raising the money until all the actors or all the musicians come, and you realize they come as people with baggage of their own, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of their baggage, and you're trying to get these things on stage, and lots happens. So that's what this is all about.
Well, and I think what I hear you saying, and when you talk about the money aspect, Eric, you and I have talked many times about this, but I think when you think about the arts, when you think about artists, if you're a creative person and an artist, it's very easy to forget that it's a business. The North Carolina theater is a business. It's not just, I mean, obviously it's about the art. We all love the art and seeing it, but behind the scenes, you know, there are donors and there are people who have to pay the bills and make these shows work. And in the case of North Carolina theater, it's expensive shows.
It's so true, and it's one of the topics that Carrie and I really bonded over. We happen to live in the same area, and during the pandemic, we were able quite often, mostly on Sunday mornings, to meet in a very socially distanced way, wearing 2 masks. You know, until we're vaccinated now, but we would meet and we would talk about the arts. And Carrie has such an extensive background in so many different areas of the arts, and we would talk about this. You know, what it means to get something produced, and when you get to these donors. A lot of it is about, I don't want to say chasing money, but you need the money to make the art. And then for what price? And I think that is so much, it's a humorous aspect of the book to me, in that chase, you know, how important that chase becomes for the sake of the art. And we certainly face that at North Carolina Theater, because when you are a professional theater company, just like this was a professional music festival that was produced both in the book and in real life, it is professional, and it's not just the hobby aspect. And I don't mean to say hobby in a derogatory way, but it's not just for fun. These are people's livelihoods and their passion, and everything's at stake.
It is. The other thing is, you know, in the book, and I won't give any spoilers, of course, it happens in a very back channel way that this money just comes, because Celeste, the main character, really doesn't know what she's doing. And the other thing is understanding when you're working, you know, it's not like, it was a little like with the Boylan Heights Art Walk. You know, we started with 5 artists, and then it went to 25, and then it went to 50. And with the North Carolina Theater, you know, it's like you're always building, and the same thing with our festival, it's always building. I wanted to make the book seem very real, although it's fantastical that she gets this $200,000. And so went to my publisher and said, I have this idea. What if we put a program at the end of the book with all the music that was played in the festival, in this imaginary festival? And somebody can then go, and if they want to, listen to all the music, so they can have this experience of what, you know, Celeste fell in love with, what Emily falls in love with, and how, you know, Emily is, for me, one of the most important characters in the book, because she's not about the money. She's about the love of the music, and she gets introduced to the music, and it turns her life around. And for me, that was really important, as much as the fun of how Celeste gets the music was. I wanted to show that this is important. You know, the arts are important, and they change lives. And we have to have them, and we have to figure out a way to get that money, you know? And I love
absolutely. Well, and I've told this story before, but you know, when my brother passed away several years ago, and I was in a deep depression, and there were days I didn't get out of bed until I had to pick my daughter up from school, and that was the only reason I got out of bed, was to get her from school, and then I picked her up. And I came home and I got back into my pajamas. I was really in a bad place. And then I saw this ad for Broadway World. I love the theater. I've always loved the theater, but it was getting that position at Broadway World that got me out of bed and got me into theater. And I always say the theater kind of brought me back to life. And I kind of joke about that, but it really did. It gave me a purpose. It gave me a reason to get up. It gave me people to be around. and it gave me other people's shoes to sit in. So I think the arts are very important. I know they've been for me in healing and kind of a catharsis kind of thing. Eric, I want to ask, well, and Carrie, this really speaks to the structure of the book a little bit. So, Eric, on the back of the book, there's a quote from you that compares the book as it's written to a concerto. Carrie, did you take any cues from music in how you structured the book?
Yes. I learned a lot about music. I mean, I grew up, I didn't grow up, my son grew up in our house, and we had a lot of music. And I grew up in the musical world with my own father and my family, and music was a very important part. So I knew a little bit about music, and we wound up through the festival bringing in some of the top European talent into this area, which was so very exciting. And I learned from them. And we expanded to opera and to jazz. And we brought jazz musicians in. We brought a jazz group from Europe. We brought a jazz group from Atlanta. We brought the two jazz groups together, and we had a big thing about jazz. So I wanted the book to have the feeling that it grew, and then it fell off to, I hope, applause, and that's why I wanted to put the program in the back of the book. And it was fun. It was fun to do. And I worked very hard on the description of the music so people would hear what I hear, maybe. And it's the way I heard the music that they played. And so we selected music for my son helped me. We picked out music for this one-week festival from the 5 years that we did the festival together. And kind of, it was like the highlights of those 5 years, that the music that we both loved the most that was presented. So I hope that answers.
And your writing is very descriptive, to the point that when she's sitting in the cafe in Italy and they tell her she's going to go to this concert to hear this orchestra play, my husband and I have been to Italy twice, and I imagine sitting in this outdoor venue in the heat, listening to these musicians play, because to me, when we were in Italy, there was just music permeating the air. It just seemed like everywhere you went, there was some piece of music, some musician. It's just such a place. But your writing and the description of the concert and her being there in the cafes, it took me right back there. So I love that. It was like a little field trip.
Yes.
So in addition to the playlist, you and Eric, this is where Eric becomes your co-conspirator. You imagined a imaginary movie casting. And Eric, you certainly have a head for casting. You were casting director in New York for 14 years. But I feel like this is this unusual in the writing process, Carrie? Are you usually thinking, even in not in terms of pitching a real movie, but are you thinking as you're writing characters about actual people or personas on who might play these characters as you're writing them?
Me or Eric?
No, Carrie, this one's for you. We'll get to Eric in a second, because Eric has his Eric has his take on casting for sure.
Right.
So while you're writing a normal, I mean, not just this novel, but any novel, are you thinking in terms of, obviously you're creating a character, you're creating a persona, but do you attach that persona to an actual actor and actress? Are you casting the book?
No, not so much an actor, but I love Anne Lamott once. One of her wonderful sayings was, if you didn't want me to write about you, you should have been nicer to me. And, and that's sort of, so I collect a little bit of a person here and a little bit of a person there and a little bit here. And I put those together over time and think, that's Millie. I know who Millie is. And so I think more of real people and not so much what they look like, but their characteristics, who are they, what is the essence of them? And that's what I go for. And when I work with a character, I need to hear them speak. And I often tell students, if you don't hear voices, you shouldn't be a writer. I hear their voices in my head. I understand why they say what they say. There are a lot of characters in this book that I just fell in love with. I mean, and some of them kind of personify a little bit of the, Southern thing, Binky Covington. I mean, I've always wanted to have a Binky character, and I got one this time, and an Emily and Celeste's mother, Millie, and then, of course, all of these very temperamental, wonderful artists who I got to work with, and I stole a little here and a little there, and it's more that I put a character together, and I never know what they're going to do. In Ashwin's Rug, I have a character who actually burns a library down. She burns the library down at St. Mary's. And St. Mary's has never called me and said, why did you do that? But I never knew that this character was going to do that. But she winds up burning the library down because anyway, you'll have to read that book to find out why she did that. So it's more that whenever I sit down to read, I don't know where the story's going. I just ask myself, I've created these people. I wonder what they're going to do next. And then I turn it over to somebody like Eric and say, who do you think this is? Who's the actor? And that's been great fun, just absolutely great fun.
So Eric, when you're casting this movie, Carrie's book as a movie, was this an easy exercise for you? Because you're not typically a film casting director. You're thinking in terms of theatrical. Was it an easy exercise?
Well, it was a fun exercise. First of all, just to say, we're talking so much about the incredible artistic side of the book, but there's the juicy part that is has a little bit of the best part of like a soap opera serial, and you can't wait to turn the next page to get to the next chapter to see what these different characters are going to do. And the fact that part takes place in Raleigh. So there's this whole kind of Valentine to, living here or growing up here. And I kept telling Carrie, I was like, I know these people. I grew up with these people. I'm working with a few of these people, like you can see little bits in all of these characters. And an interesting thing about casting for Broadway shows is, we would always call it dialing for dollars, but to get very real about the commercial side of Broadway, producers always wanted Hollywood stars, and they didn't care that nobody could sing. They were just like, what star can we get to be in that show? And it would be such a thrill for a producer to pick up the phone and say, we want to, cast Mamma Mia, and we're not worried about movie stars. And then sometimes you do look into, I did a little night music, and we got Angela Lansbury and Catherine Zeta-Jones, and then Bernadette Peters and Elaine Stritch. So, sometimes you get names that really are amazing, and that works. So to your point, we actually did always start our lists. So the beginning of casting is to make these long lists of ideas. And then those lists start to get whittled down as they get passed around to producers and different people on the creative team. So we would often start with these stars and then start to say, well, they're not interested, or they're shooting other movies, or they're doing other things, or they're not quite right. And so the list would get smaller and smaller. So Carrie and I were talking about it, and we thought what would be fun is we started with very long list. I had a lot of fun. I was thinking,
Right.
you know, what if it all skewed older? What if it all skewed a lot younger? And
diversity.
And diversity. So
Right.
so what we did is diversity is certainly something that's really being discussed, and some wonderful steps are being made currently. It's something that both Carrie and I have cared a lot about for a long time. And a year ago, right now, I was lucky enough to pick Carrie's play blindly to do for Burning Coal with the 19th Amendment Project. And it was LAW, The Ladies Are Waiting. And it was this sort of, it was a short play, but it was a take on Guinevere and Arthur, you know, through the eyes of Guinevere, who is, you know, it's right before the law of being able to vote. And so examining all of that in a very, very funny way. Well, I met with Carrie and I said, how would you feel if one of these characters or both were cast, you know, kind of non-traditionally? Carrie loved it. And
it's great.
Yeah, and so we did. Our Guinevere was Rasul Jahan, who's African American, and our Arthur was Estes Tarver, who is Caucasian, and it really worked. So we've laughed now. We were kind of doing Bridgerton
before Bridgerton was really cool.
Before it was trendy.
I understood it, and that's something that through casting through the years, that's been so important to me. And, you know, Hamilton has really made it even a lot more mainstream, and there's still so much work to be done, but that's something that was important to us. And so even though the characters, if you first read them, many of them would be white, if not all of them, upon first reading, we started talking about which characters might not be Caucasian. And then we started talking about, well, every character could be somebody else. Yeah. Right. And so we whittled everything down to 3 names, mostly recognizable names, but not all, and on purpose. And in every category, there are 3 names. And in every category, there's at least one person that, if not more, that's non-Caucasian. So that it really opens up, you know, if a reader reads the book and then sort of plays this game, you know, joins in on this exercise with us and gets a chance to cast the movie. Because I find through the years that everybody is sort of their own casting director and thinks, why did they get that person for that? And I think it should be this person. So we thought it would be a fun way for readers to be engaged on another level and see it like a movie and pick the top person for that, or come up with your own choice if you think you know somebody that would be a better choice for it.
And so what we're going to do is every week, it's now getting set up. It should go live by next week. We'll introduce a brief description of one of the characters, and which is very similar to the kind of description a casting director would get. You know,
a breakdown. We would call it a breakdown. Yeah.
Gets a breakdown. And then there'll be the 3 actors. And I love the idea that we have like one that's very recognizable, everybody knows, and then 2 that they may not know, but we've got a click through where they can go to their profile online and find movies that they've done. So, you know, if you're tired on Netflix and you want something new to look for, maybe this will help you, you know, get into movies you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And then once all of this is done and we have a quote unquote winner in each category, my publisher will send a copy of the book to those actors and say, just for your information, you've been cast in a fantasy casting of this book to a movie, and we thought you'd have fun reading the book. So, and maybe, who knows?
I love this. I love this. Well, and it's interesting. So for those of you watching, this is a lot harder than it seems like it would be, because as I was reading and I was imagining casting in my own brain, I'd have to go back and say, okay, well, no, this person is 40. So if this person is in her 40s, then this person cannot possibly be her mother because this person is not old enough. So it's really, if you're really thinking about it and you're not just blindly saying, oh, I think Meryl Streep would be wonderful in this part. If you're really thinking about it from a logical standpoint, which is what I started to do, it's harder than it seems like it would be. At least was for me. I started analyzing every choice I was making. I was like, oh no, that doesn't work. So now, were you guys in sync on your casting as you were coming up with these lists? Was there anybody on your list that you envisioned, Carrie, that Eric was like, oh no?
No, what was we each made a list, and we would get together actually at a dog park in a gazebo. So this is how we could get our distancing and have a roof over our heads. And so we would go over each other's lists, and Erica would say, "Oh no, no, no," and I would say, "Oh no, no, no," and we would like whittle it down. And I think we did this over several months, meeting once a week and thinking about it. And then he would give me a list, and I would go research and say, no, I don't think so. I think this person would be better. This is how I hear his voice. And since I do have these characters in my head, I was looking to hear them. I wanted to, so I would, watch these movies or, some clips from these actors that I didn't know. And then we would get together again, and it took several. I mean, I could see that it's a process, and that was really fun to find out how the process works. So I feel like I've really got insight here.
Well, and it's so true, because when you're fortunate enough as a casting director to work with the writer, who has created these voices, it is important to make sure you are serving that vision. And then it's also a casting director's job to challenge that. And it's not even challenge. It's just say, what about, what if? And Carrie's so fun to work with in that way, because she sort of pause and then go, oh, that could be really neat. That's exciting. And so we would, and the whole idea, a casting director's job is to come up not with one choice, but many choices. So that, just like you're talking about, Lauren, like say some decisions seem like they wouldn't fit together, but say you lock in one role first, like probably one of your leading roles, and you lock that in, and that person is different than it looks like on paper. That's going to then start to dictate the rest of the puzzle. And so it's important to have ideas that go in many different directions. All could be viable choices. And that's a little insight and a secret into what a good casting director does.
Absolutely. So, Carrie, just to kind of clarify, will this be on your website that people can go on your website or the published website?
It'll be on our website. We'll do it through social media. We'll introduce each character on social media, on Facebook and Twitter and this and that and whatever, Instagram, and then that'll you'll link through to my website, and that's where you'll vote, and you'll be able to see the full description, because a lot of the social media have limited what you can do. We had to come down to just 3, which was hard for us to do because we were having way too much fun thinking of who might work with these various roles, but we couldn't, the system wouldn't let us do more than 3. So we were locked into 3. And so we had to whittle it down to 3. And I think that was the hardest, to come down to the final 3, and there is room for you to put somebody else in if you want to put someone else in. But it'll all take you to my website, and then you can, and if you missed 1 week, then you can catch up, and it's not like you have to do it exactly in the right order.
And also, what makes me laugh about this? Most people in the pandemic, they baked bread, they knitted. You guys cast a movie. I mean,
Yeah.
this speaks. Eric, I knew you'd get your casting fix in. I just knew it somehow.
No, I know. Well, what's funny is, and this is an interesting part of it as well, is it really started not with this result in mind at all. It was just Carrie and I meeting and talking about the book and talking about the theater and talking about a lot of different artistic projects and ideas, because she's so wonderful to brainstorm ideas with, and we were doing that back and forth. And I think Carrie said, you know what would be fun, like, if, since you say it reads like a movie, who would you see in this? It literally started as a conversation, and then we started like making lists and throwing names out, and then it became, wouldn't it be fun if ... Yeah.
Cast it and they will come, you know.
I love this. Well, and you never know. You just
Never
don't
know.
know.
Never-
So I
and
want to
also-
put you both. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say fantasy, fantasy basketball, fantasy football, like all of that is, there's such an area for that. So why can't there be this
Fantasy theater.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Fantasy theater. Well, and we haven't had theater, and we haven't, and anytime, I think we're all so itching right now to be engaged in anything. And so I think this is just coming at the perfect time, because we're all looking for connection and engagement and fun. I think it's been a year of not so fun. So it's nice to engage with each other in fun. So I want to put you guys on the spot. Carrie, if they were going to make a movie of your life story, who would you want to play you?
Oh boy, somebody taller, thinner, and a lot wealthier. I don't know. That's a very interesting question. Who would I want to play me? I'll have to think about that. Somebody. Let me think a moment. I'll put Eric on the spot. Who would play you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's I mean, it depends. It's so interesting, isn't it? We think about our essence, and I don't know. I don't know that I would necessarily go for someone who looks like me, but I would go for someone who, I mean, an actor that I absolutely love. He's younger, so it would have to be my young life. Would be Timothy Chalamet. It's just such a brilliant actor. My God, if somebody like that, who just, you see all of this stuff going on, but I don't know. John Malkovich.
Oh, that could
I don't know.
I think Eric's right. It's not the look, it's the spirit. It's the spirit.
Yes.
Wild spirit. Yeah. It's a very wild spirit.
The essence. At the heart of the book, it's all about music, and it's about art, and this type of power the arts has over us. That's what you wrote in the back of the book, Eric. Carrie, you talked about Boylan Heights. I know you sat on the board of the symphony. How has your love of visual art, music, the performing arts informed who you are as a writer?
Oh, that's I am a visual artist as well as a writer. And I've, loved the theater and have had the privilege of writing two little plays that have been produced. I think, to me, there are a lot of writers who are also visual artists. And I think part of the reason is because they're also actors. Anthony Hopkins, he is also a musician, and he's a composer. He wrote a symphony, and he's a visual artist as well as he is an amazing actor. And I think it's all the same, that artistic expression. It's all about not only wanting to have a voice, but cleaning it up, editing it, getting it sharp enough so other people can hear it, can find it, can, practicing your craft is really the joy of doing it. It's like if you say, oh, okay, fine, well, I'll just, I've been on stage once and that was great and done that, check that off the list. That's not how it happens. It's like, done that. Ooh, I could do that better. I could, oh, who would I like to play? What book would I like to write? Can I make this sentence better? Can I make this piece of abstract art more accessible to somebody? It's all about just an underlying passion of wanting to make an expression. And it's all the same to me. And I think for me, the joy of doing the Boylan Heights Art Walk was working with the artists who had never been in a art festival before and helping them understand what they were trying to say and helping them to say that. And I had a wonderful experience a number of years ago. I did some work in South Africa that was related to my writing work. Actually, it was related to my grant writing work, since I've had to write a lot of grants and help people write grants. And I was in South Africa working and also did some visual work there. And when the studio that I was working in for myself, for fun, they discovered that I also was a writer and did this other thing. And they asked me to teach a class one night, which I did. And there was a gentleman who was a Zulu, who was a marvelous artist. And I taught the class there the same way I would teach it anywhere, which is helping visual artists or performing artists to think about who they are, what do they want to say? And it's a writing class. What do you want to say? Who do you want to be? What are you trying to say here with this red or this orange or whatever? And people, I ask people to always say, why do you paint? Or, why do you do the artwork you do? And everybody in this class, and there were very, very accomplished artists in this group. It was up in the northern part of South Africa in a very, very famous print studio. And there were a couple artists from the Sorbonne who were there and from England and all over who would come down to work there. And everybody was, I make art because I see things, beautiful things, and I want the world to see beautiful things. And, I believe in beauty and blah, 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 all the way around the circle. And we get to the Zulu guy who worked next to me during the studio time that I was there. And he paused for a moment and he said, I paint so that I won't fight and drink. And I said, that's the truth. And all the famous people from France and London looked at me and said, wait a minute, what about the beauty in the world? And I said, no, he's working from his heart. And that's art. I don't care how you do it. And I think about that young man, and he came into the studio. He had been working all week, and he was actually being sponsored by a big time gallery in South Africa. They wanted him to get some additional training, and every day he would come in and he would have a picture from a magazine that he had taken, and he would beautifully copy that picture and with his own touch to it. And he talked to me afterwards, and he said, I'm afraid. I said, why do you paint from a picture? Why aren't you painting from your heart, like you said? And he said, they would not like what I had to say. And I said, give it a whirl. And it came in the next day, and he created these pieces of artwork that just took your breath away. And everybody respected him for it. And it was the first time that he had stepped away and done his own work. And it was a wonderful, wonderful gift that I got from him. But I think that we act, we sing, we make music, not only because we want to make beauty in the world, but because we have to. We have to do that. And, that's so important to understand, that we do that because we have to. We don't have a choice. Otherwise, we would fight and drink.
Well, and it's like breathing. You just, and that's what I think is so I think what you're speaking to is the authenticity that you see in different artists. And we all have this flowery way we want to curate things, but it's when you get real, when you get honest, when you get true in whatever you're doing, like this young man you're speaking of, it can produce something beautiful. So I love that you said that. So
This is a book, but it has a serious kernel to it. There's a truth to it, and Emily is the truth in the book. So I'm sorry I interrupted.
No. I love that. I love that. Well, and it's I think books, it's so interesting. I've never been a reader, and I just I was finding that I had to read quite a bit for Beltline to Broadway. People would give me things to read. I'd have theater books to read. Grant gave me a whole stack of books to read for Christmas. And I just, when I look at a hard copy of a book, it's very overwhelming to me. But the Kindle has made me a reader. I will say I become a Kindle reader. Who knew? Eric, what is on your playlist? I know there's a playlist in the back of the book. So other than listening to beautiful Italian classical music, what's been on your pandemic playlist?
Well, it's so funny that you asked that, because I was just telling a friend recently, actually telling on myself. Well, it's not even telling on myself. I love music so much, and music has played such an important part of my life, and in my life, that oddly, I don't listen to a lot of music. I feel like it's in my head, and for all of those years, spending 8 hours a day listening to people sing show tunes and being in the theater, I don't really listen to theatrical music. I listen to a lot of classical. I love to, I don't know, I've been trying to listen to, during the pandemic, more popular music, because I feel so distanced from what the kids are listening to today.
I can't even imagine you listening to popular music. I can't.
I do. That new thing, with the driver's license, like the angst songs, like, I do. I find it interesting, and I'll sometimes listen to country music, because I do think that country, I don't really listen to it very often, but I appreciate it because it's the closest thing to musical theater music with the story.
Yep.
And I just have such a respect for it. But I find that it, like the arts, that it doesn't matter what music you're listening to. Like, it doesn't matter what art form it is. As Carrie is saying, it's the power of just the art itself, on how it touches us and how it feels for those of us who are artists. And you don't have to be an artist to be touched by art, and that's the beautiful thing about it. I think those of us who are artists, just like you, Lauren, like, there's a sense of a calling to it, and we get healed from it, and we actually are conduits, and we are lucky enough to heal people with art. And readers who are going to pick up this incredible book don't have to be artists to get something amazing from it. And I wanted to circle back too. Readers don't have to do this casting exercise if they don't want to. You can just read it. But we just thought it was like another fun, artistic way to celebrate the thing that we love so much, which is art.
And there are many, many affairs in this book, but you don't have to put a brown cover on it. It's not like 50 Shades of Grey. It's okay. It's
well, and it's juicy, but not yeah. You don't have to hide the book. So, Gary, this is your website, CJA New Work. This is where people can go if they want to participate in this casting exercise.
Right.
And you'll keep us posted on what happens. I don't want to give too much away on the casting, but people will be able to see your choices and vote and then cast their own ballots for that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And come up with their own choices if you think of someone that you actually think would be better.
Right.
You know, that's a fun thing as well.
And this, please remind people, this won't be live until probably late next week. So,
Okay.
Then again, next week.
So they have time to read the book before they cast the movie.
They have time to read the book before they cast it. Yes, absolutely. At least begin to go through it. So, and the characters, the casting comes out to, as the characters present in the book, we're presenting the characters for casting. So you can kind of read along and cast along as you're going.
So, Carrie, what's next? Do you have other books in the works? You must. You always have something going on.
Something in the works. In addition to doing this, I also write a column for Psychology Today called Shifting Forward. And my publisher approached me a couple months ago and said, I really love your columns. So I really have to start this week, actually. He wants to publish a collection of my columns, which will be fun, and that'll come out late next year sometime. And if I get it off my desk, which has to happen, and then I don't know. I think Eric and I have been talking about a play idea. I have a new play about when I did the work for The Inevitable Past. I did a lot of research about the 1893 Columbia Exposition, it's late in the day, exposition in Chicago. And I discovered the women's building and all these kind of amazing stories about the women artists who were involved in that building, many of whom had this major commission, which should have skyrocketed anybody's career. And it was the only thing they ever did. And that was it. They went and they had this phenomenal success. And then they got married and they disappeared and they never did anything else again. And I was startled by that. And a second choice, not the first choice, but a second choice, and some people say the third choice for a major mural in that exposition in the women's building was Mary Cassatt. And the whole committee thought she wasn't good enough. And she was the one who survived all of that and became the big name afterwards. So there's kind of a very fascinating thing with, and Mary Cassatt made the commitment that she would never marry because you can't be married and be an artist. And so there's a lot of very interesting ideas about, the 19th Amendment that I worked on, and, what women do and feel as they can do creatively, and also how difficult it is for a woman, that so many of the creative fields are dominated by men, which I don't mean to pick on Eric. I really like him, but it's true. It's very true. And there are good roles for women in this movie that we're creating here. So I'm thinking about a play, but before that, I have to get this other book done. So, yeah.
And Eric, I am thrilled to say, I know what's next for you, Songs for a New World.
Yes, it is on the horizon. We, news is changing so quickly with what we are able to do, as a group, as people coming together, how many people can gather, and what is safe and what is okay, and that has been a delicate dance to figure out and to partner with the Actors Equity Union and figure all of that out. But we are thrilled. We committed to this before these green lights, and so it's exciting that we're going to be the first resident company in the downtown arts complex to be able to have a live show, because we had already committed to it. And so that's coming up July 27th through August 1st, Songs for a New World. And don't be worried if you don't know the music or you've never heard of that title. we don't expect you to. It is going to be concert-like in feel, and it's going to be a great way to come back and let these amazing singers just take you away with some funny songs, some poignant songs, this beautiful music by Jason Robert Brown. So that's what we're really working on right now.
I can't wait. And next season proves to be such a shot in the arm, such a joyride with North Carolina Theater. So I can't wait. 9 to 5, Sister Act, On Your Feet. It's going to be a season. So I can't wait to get back to the theater. I did take a tour of the Duke Energy Center. They opened the doors for me last week, and there's a lot of good precautions being taken, but nothing that seems so obtrusive that it would make the theater going experience feel much different. So I was thrilled to see all the precautions they're taking and how they're doing it very mindfully.
Yes.
So,
they're doing an incredible job.
They really are. They really are. Kudos to them. They've got a lot of venues to manage. So, but anyway, thank you so much, both of you. This is so much fun. I will be watching, and I have to finish the book. I'm glad I have another week before I have to make my casting decisions. But thank you so much. And Carrie, you'll be at Quail Ridge on Sunday. People can see you in person, get their books signed.
Yes. I am the first in-person author they'll have in the store since COVID. And I was there this afternoon signing books, and everybody's excited and nervous. And, we're taking some precautions and giving social distance for people. And I think, I've only had 2 or 3 bad nightmares about it. So that's actually pretty good for me, but it is hard for people to decide to come. And I recognize that. But if you can come, please call, make a reservation. They're asking for people to make reservations to come, so that they'll know how many people they have to sort of set the chairs to social distance for. But
I don't think there are a ton of seats left.
Actually,
I mean, I'm going, and there weren't many to
this afternoon there were 9 seats left. So
And I will say, Carrie, I am a nervous ninny about going out. I've been very comfy, cozy in my house. And when the mask mandates went away and some of the other things, even though we're fully vaccinated, my family's fully vaccinated, I was really nervous. And what I say to people is, I think it's a lot scarier in your head than if you just get in the car and go somewhere. Because once you get to wherever you're going, it's a lot less scary than you're imagining it would be. And I actually went to the movies last week with my mom. We saw a screening of In the Heights, and I was terrified to go to movie theater. And then when we got there, it was fine. So I to those of you who are nervous, I think it's time. It's time for reentry, as much as you're comfortable.
And I think that's really important, that everybody has to do it at their own pace. Mm-hmm. And I think if people just are allowed to kind of come out, I was laughing with the staff at Quail Ridge. I mean, for most writers, we're a somewhat solitary bunch, and there is a big part of me that is very much a recluse in some ways, although I can be social. And that's going to be hard for me to give up, and somebody wrote me today and they wanted me to be involved in some Zoom thing. And I said, I'm zoomed out, thank you, but no. And so I think if I'm going to say no to Zoom, I need to say yes to being in person at places. And I think it's going to be okay. I'm double vaccinated, as Eric is. We celebrated that. That was fun. We felt like, oh my gosh, we can sit at a picnic table. It was a big deal. It was a really big deal, coffee cups. Yeah, no, and it won't be easy, but I think it'll take time. And but I really hope people will come out to the theater and to music and come back to the arts with kind of an open heart.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you so much, Eric. I cannot wait to see both of you. I just, I think it's going to be a good summer. I think it's going to be good summer of reading and theater.
That's great. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
So everyone, we have a really big week this week. So follow us on social media to get the whole schedule. But Andre Jordan from Diana the Musical, he'll be with me on Wednesday. We're doing a community coloring night because we just can't have enough community coloring nights. And so Andrea and I are partnering to do a community coloring night Wednesday night. And then Thursday is Torn. And since Little Shop of Horrors, Alan Menken, I think his birthday is today. I'll announce this now. Not this week. Next week, I will be with Erin Harrington, Audrey II, in the new Little Shop of Horrors that will reopen off Broadway when theater comes back. So I'm very excited about that. So we have some great things coming up. Please subscribe, watch us on social media, do all the things so you know what's happening. And Eric, I will see you soon. Eric is going for a world record on Beltline to Broadway. And Carrie, I will see you soon. And I'll let you know when I think of the book. I'm very excited to.
I love that. Thank you. And tell me your favorite.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Yes, I'll have to do the casting. But like I said, it was stressing me out because like overthinking it. Eric, I don't know how you do this. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in a couple days.